You've seen that the annual LGBTQIA Plus Awards, better known as the Feather Awards, took place on Wednesday this year in a closed venue with only members of the media and nominees in attendance. The award seeks to acknowledge and also celebrate members of the LGBTQIA Plus community who are doing great things, as well as those who contribute to the community by offering support. The categories range from Best LGBTQIA Plus Initiative, Private Sector, to Role Model of the Year, Diva Extraordinaire, and Best LGBTQIA Plus Student Movement, just to name a few. Now, some of the big winners we are talking to are poet, writer, and director Napo Masheane, who won the award for Best Rainbow Parenting, as well as actor, presenter, and MC Siv Ngesi, who won Fag Hag of the Year. Well, very good morning to you both. Thank you very much for joining us here on Weekend Dawn. I mean, when we look at the significance of the awards and what they represent, perhaps even the evolution thereof, I mean, what comes to mind for the both of you?
I mean, for me, you want to go first, Svi?
No, go ahead. Beauty comes before beauty. Definitely start. You go.
I mean, for me in particular, it's just every time I've been to Feather Awards before in support of friends, in support of the movement. But more than anything, I think being one of the nominees and eventually a winner this year has just been a huge affirmation in the fact that one is doing something right as a parent. But also I think for my son, it was such an amazing, beautiful experience for him to be among the community that is so embracing and that has abundance of love.
For me, I must be honest, I was quite taken aback that I ended up winning an award for just loving and supporting an incredible community. I think I think when people see my brand or me as a person, they always think this jock who plays rugby, who boxes, how can he care about the community? And the community has taught me so much about masculinity and definitely reinvented how I define masculinity, and definitely has shown me the power and strength and vulnerability. So I'm very, very happy. It's definitely the best looking award I've ever had. It's pink and it turns up.
And it's so heavy.
And it's tanned and it's heavy. So for me, it's right here with all my other awards, and it's definitely the one I'm more proud of the most.
You've touched on a very important issue, I mean, regarding narratives, stereotypes, paradigm shifts that also need to happen, particularly geared towards the LGBTQI plus community at large. So for the both of you, I mean, when we look at the narratives that persist in society, in South African context to date, and some of the strides that continue to, or some of the challenges rather, that continue to plague the community at large in terms of discrimination, representation, and lack of inclusivity, how would you summate that?
I mean, I remember when we did one of the shoots for the opening act with Gloria Bosman, Zizo, Chete, and Lerato Moloi. One of the aching things for all of us was really about how when we say Black Lives Matter, also, queer life matter, women's life matter. So you can't, as an activist, I mean, for myself, I can't advocate for the rights of Black women and not advocate for the rights of my queer friends. South Africa has one of the highest, cases where a lot of queer friends and within the queer community, a lot of people are being harassed, are being abused. But more than anything, others end up dying in the hands of, people that they know within their own, communities. So for me, it's just one of those things that when we advocate for our lives as Black people, we must also be inclusive of the queer lives and, of course, Black women. Because if all of us are free, if all of us are very safe, so can we all of us, be part of a much more peaceful, loving, and quite accepting community.
Siv, your thoughts?
For me, we live in South Africa, right on the tip of Africa, and there are some African countries that these awards would be illegal. And I think for me, that still blows my mind how in 2020, how celebrating another person can be illegal. And for me, it really, really does blow my mind. And I think we've got such a long way to go. But the opening speech was incredible because they were talking about representation in the workplace, in supporting the LGBT community. And I think we have a long way to go. But for me, I'm very inspired to see the strides that are being taken. And, you know, we live in a country where the most famous person in the country is a homosexual man who is Samizi. But you can have people support Samizi and still be homophobic, which still blows my mind. It's still such a big contradictory in this whole entire thing. So for me, really incredibly proud to win this award, and I'm really looking forward to getting involved in the community a lot more and to do more. The event was very inspiring to be able to see what we're doing, and we have a long way to go.
Well, in the same breath, strides have been taken. So when we look at the Constitution and even the legal frameworks that, do support every citizen in South Africa, I mean, the lived reality is often somewhat contradictory to that. So when we look at access to health, safety and security, just in closing remarks, what more do you think government and the private sector need to do to perhaps help rewrite these narratives and promote a more equal and inclusive society?
I mean, I think sometimes the government is government by the people, right? And I think it has to start with each and every one of us. And it starts in small things. If I'm Napo Masheane and I'm opening a restaurant within my community, I must make sure that the restrooms are, are very non-binary. I need to make sure that as a rainbow parent, when I'm conversing with my family and my uncle or my aunt who comes from Kwakwa, who's old school, say something, very, very mean or very negative about the queer community, I need to call them out and immediately use that opportunity to say, well, what about my son? What about, because if you deny him, you deny me as a mother. So I think beyond going to government, and as we said, one of the biggest, nicest speeches from Tammy Dish was how in the workspace, if you have a friend within your workspace, as a playwright, when I write plays, I need to be inclusive in those plays. I need to bring characters and stories on that stage that reflect and mirror our society. So for me, really, it starts with small things that can make a huge difference.
In World Rugby, they just banned transgenders from playing in rugby. And many of the rugby people in the community said nothing, and no one's been in uproar. It is an incredible injustice. And for me, as a heterosexual male who has influence, we need to speak up about that. I think in boardrooms, there's boardrooms with 20 people, and not one of them is part of the community, not one. So there's no representation. We're still fighting to get women to be represented in boardrooms, and it's 2020. So I think representation is very important. You can never, ever underplay how important it is. And for me, I learned so much from being at the Feather Awards, because they said things and I was like, oh, that's such a great point. I played rugby in America 4 years ago, and I showed up there and I thought I'd be the best player because I was straight. Was I not pleasantly surprised? So I think in board meetings and boardrooms, representation is very important. On television, people create content. There needs to be representation there.
All right, Siv and Napo, we're going to have to leave the conversation there. Again, thank you very much for flying the flag high. Again, just two of the many winners at this year's LGBTQIA+ Feather Awards. Awards obviously just recognizing the contribution made to the LGBTQIA+ community at large.